Welcome to the Small Business Sisterhood podcast. I'm your host, Pepper Makepeace, an online business strategist helping handmade business owners get more visibility for their Etsy shops, and founder of the Small Business Sisterhood. Join me as I go behind the scenes with female entrepreneurs, revealing the struggles, strategies, and inspiring stories of these amazing women. We're here to normalize the ups and downs of entrepreneurship so we can all feel a little less isolated, be a little more connected, and keep moving forward in our businesses. If you're interested in connecting with like-minded women through monthly virtual networking and co-working events, join the free podcast community at smallbusinesssisterhood.com. Today we're talking to Annie P. Ruggles. For almost a decade, Annie has harnessed her Hulk-like disdain for hard sales, tacky self-promotion, and overly competitive sleazeballs as an inspiration to help people find better ways to grow their small businesses. As the founder of this non-sleazy sales academy, she's guided hundreds of people toward making deeper connections, lasting impressions, and friendlier, more lucrative transactions and conversations. Her podcast, Too Legitimate to Quit, serves up instantly actionable small business strategies with a pop culture spin every Monday.
Thanks, Annie, for being on the podcast. I'm super excited to talk to you and learn more about you and your business.
It is my pleasure to be here with you today.
Tell everybody a little bit about you and your business.
So my business is called the Non-Sleazy Sales Academy, and my specialty is helping empaths and introverts sell in a way that is in keeping with their human spongy nature, or their introversion, or their ethics, their morals, ideally all of the above, right? Mm-hmm. Because the majority of sales education out there is not designed for people who are so invested in the win-win. And because of that, sales is continually stigmatized. But in order for businesses to compete and survive, they have to sell. So the Non-Sleazy Sales Academy is dedicated to providing better ways to find those win-wins so you could be compensated and serve simultaneously.
I love that. I love every bit of that. And you kind of came to this business. You have a bit of an interesting backstory, don't you? How you kind of came to this?
Well, the most sales avoidant person on earth, if they had had a contest, I would have won. So I always say, like, if for some reason a time machine exists and you decide that you're going to go back in time to talk to younger me, please don't tell me that I teach sales. You will devastate younger me. I will not understand it. I will not get it, which is to say the most sales avoidant person alive was me. But what I was filled with and have always been filled with was this desire to serve very small businesses. As a little kid, I was a child of two entrepreneurs. My mom was a speaker. My dad was a business strategist. They're both retired now. My grandpa was a used car salesman. I grew up with him in my house and like all of these things. My grandma was a writer. And so I learned all these things by osmosis. But I always loved the mom and pop shop down the street. And I always wanted to make sure that they could compete, right? I remember when a Walmart moved into our town when I was little and I was furious. Like everyone around was rejoicing and I was like, ah! It's like an 8-year-old, you know? So that's always just been me. But what happened was I went into coaching. In the new form at that point of life coaching. And I wanted to take my Muppet energy and do something to help people. And I was 20 something. So I was like, oh, I'll tell other people how to live their lives. That sounds like a great plan for a 20 something. And so I did that for a while and I started getting clients and I was super excited. Why wouldn't I be? I was like, oh, clients. But what happened was people actually came to me because they wanted to know how their new coaching business could be profitable. And so I was like, oh, I guess I should look and learn more about this whole marketing branding piece for coaches and healers specifically, because those are my folks. And so I did. I went on this huge deep dive of learning everything I could do about marketing and branding. I did that for several years. I loved it. I took a weird, brief foray of about 5 years into software, which taught me a lot, but I'm not going back there. But what happened was when I went back out on my own full time, I was still doing all of this very lovely, gooey, spongy, awesome marketing and branding that was all very shiny and very fun. And I loved it. And I loved doing it with my clients, and I loved doing it in my own business. But I was watching the people that were paying me not get ahead, and I couldn't figure out why. And then I had to look at my own business and figure out why I was stuck at the level of success I was at too, because it was not even close to sustainable. It wasn't even about money. It was about sustainability. I was like, I'm not going to have a business much longer if I don't figure out what the problem is. And also if my clients don't start getting wins. And I dug deep, and what I uncovered in me was sales avoidance. This idea that I would market and market and market and market and market and serve and serve and serve and serve and serve, but never actually ask. And it was quite literally killing my business. And my clients were relying on me for marketing and branding, but they were also seeing that I wasn't actively selling. They were modeling that. I was passing on sales avoidance to the next generation, and I refused to do that. So I went into another rabbit hole, and I was like, look, there has to be a good way for good people to sell well. There just has to be. And I couldn't find it, so I learned it, so I made it. Now I teach it.
I love that. I love that so much. And it's fascinating to me that you went on that journey to get to the sales coaching, because it's not what I typically see with sales coaches. So it's really refreshing to kind of see you come at it from that perspective and see it as a problem, not only in your own business, but your clients. And it is kind of this like rampant thing that happens, especially with, new entrepreneurs of a certain demeanor, if you will, the introverts and the empaths that you're talking about. Like, I think that we're in it to serve, we're in it to, be a light in the world. And the sales part has always felt contrary to that, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. And I love that it doesn't have to be. And so tell me a bit more about like why that is. Like how is it different?
It feels like a violation, right? Because we have this definition in our head that's been reinforced by every single time we've been sold too badly. Every single time we've been sold too badly has colored our definition of sales. Every single time we've had to sell something like cookies or wrapping paper door to door has colored your relationship with sales. Every single time you've tried to sell something and been rejected has altered your relationship with sales. None of those things, though, is actually what the art and skill of selling is. It's not. That's all sales baggage. But of course, when we look at how we've been sold to, or the times that, we've been taught, just get the money, tell them to open a new credit card, they'll be fine, whatever, or do they want this or not? Every time you teach a heart-centered person this, it hurts. So why would I want to take the no-like trust factor, to take this ooey gooey friendship bubble, this nurturing, caring environment that I've made in my brand? Why would I want to lure someone into that beautiful space and then treat them like a sleazy salesperson? I don't want to, so I don't. But that's still based on the misconception that that's what selling is, that inherently you have to behave like that in order to practice sales. And that's not true. That is one method, one style, and unfortunately the loudest style. But it is now my mission to stand on beautiful shows just like this and say there are other methods. I'm not even the only one with my own method. I'm just the loudest and the flailiest about it at this moment, right? But there are ways why you can receive compensation. There are structures. There are ways that you can still over deliver. You can still give and give and give and give, but you're including yourself in your own success.
I love that, including yourself. Like, that's the key, though, isn't it? It's that we kind of neglect ourselves for the service to others sometimes. And when you include yourself in the mix of things and everybody's winning, like you said, the win-win, that's that's a different conversation.
You know, we hear a lot about, and I think all of this is super true, but especially for empaths, we hear a lot about like, well, you can't pour from an empty cup, or you have to put your own oxygen mask on first. And all of that is entirely true in life, but it's even more true in business, right? If I go around and I comp everybody everything, guess what? And I'm not having money coming in. I'm spending the same amount of energy. I'm spending the same amount of time, and they're getting the same amount of win. Where's the imbalance? What I'm receiving. So then I go to my mortgage, then I go to my landlord, and I say, I helped 200 people this month, though. And they're going to go, cool, then you should have money to pay me. Where's your mortgage payment? Where's your rent? Right? You can't pay life on good intentions. And I wish that money were not the currency of this planet, but it is. And until we come up with another way to say, oh, thank you, let me give you compensation, until we go back to the barter system and could do things for a goat, we're going to have to learn how to ask for money.
Do you think that our aversion to sales really stems from like these beliefs we have about making money? Because I was just talking to a friend the other day, another entrepreneur they're feeling guilty about making money. Like they have steady money coming in and they're feeling bad about it. And, you know, there's the people that tend to be the servers of the world, you know, I think we have some baggage around money in general.
I mean, I certainly have. And it's counterintuitive to think so, right? Because you're like, I'm a business. I'm doing it. Woo! I don't want money, though. Right? It's kind of like lurking in the shadows in the back. And there are so many phenomenal money people out there. But I think, you know, one of the things that I had that was leading to a lot of my money stuff was just straight up confidence and worthiness issues. Just like, who am I to be doing this work? Imposter syndrome. You know what? Maybe I'll take another 20 clients for free so I can prove to myself I'm good at this. Oh, but you know what? Those people, maybe I'll do another 5 clients for free. That's a worthiness issue. That's a receiving issue. And it's definitely a confidence issue, because that's going to be required of everybody, right? Then that's why even more so, I feel like if you're engaging in sales tactics that hurt your confidence or your sense of worthiness, then you're going to be in this endless loop of stupid that just goes around and goes around, because you have these two conflicting beliefs that are never going to play nicely together. But instead, if you can say, hey, let me show up in whatever your true essence is, quietly, strongly, stoically. You can do this with any personality, but if you show up and say, I am going to be unadorned about my value, I'm going to speak to it plainly, I'm going to speak to it specifically for the person I'm delivering, and I'm going to not try to dull my own sparkle, whatever that sparkle may be, you're already leaps and bounds ahead. Of where you were, 2 weeks ago, where you got somebody on the call and you just totally forgot to ask, even though they were there for a sales call, and then you sent them on their merry way and they hired your competitor. That doesn't need to happen.
So somebody that's really resonating with all the things that you're saying, where do they start? How do they get started with shifting away from the baggage and leaning towards the sparkle?
What if you, right now, how you are, already have the personality just by being yourself to make you amazing at sales? What if? Because most heart-centered businesses have at least one quality that makes them exceptional at non-sleazy selling. So what if your natural compassion for people makes you totally amazing at sales? What if your capacity for caring? What if your ability to make people feel safe when they're being vulnerable? What if it's your own authenticity? What if it's your quiet strength? What if it's your story? What if it's your empathy? What if it's your listening? What if it's your emotional intelligence? Any of these things can be used and utilized beautifully and ethically to make the sale. But what I hear over and over and over is I can't sell I'm an introvert. I can't sell I'm an empath. I can't sell I'm a human muppet. I can't sell blah, blah, blah. And I'm the one screaming back at you. I beg to differ. If you read all of these highfalutin sales books, every single one of them is going to be like the two most important things that you can do in a sales situation is have empathy and listen. Then you tell me why every single person I know that has natural empathy and loves to listen thinks they're horrible at sales. Meanwhile, if you buy the $1 million book that's on the shelf that's going out to all the sharks, it's like, well, you should practice listening. Okay, what if you already have the skills that $1 million businessmen invest in? What if you have those things naturally? That's the first shift. Is just consider that who you are right now has an element of you already in you that can make this deal beautifully.
That's a powerful shift. And that's so in line with, all things introvert and empath is that, we have what we need.
You have what you need, 100 billion%. And honestly, and I never expected this, and I get praised a lot for my perceived authenticity or uniqueness or whatever. And I love that because this is me, right? Like I'm this 24/7. This is me when I'm not like on my introvert charging pad. Like this is my natural state, right? But selling in keeping with this energy, selling in keeping with my morals, selling in keeping with how desperately I want to help and serve others has only made the authenticity easier. It's only pushed me further into that, right? So it's only by selling as me, I'm a better version of me. And if I hadn't taken the risk to say, how can I show up and make a buck like this, just like this, as I am, not putting on a mask, not putting on a front, not building a skill set. How can I make this work as me? I actually found out even more about who I am.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I like it.
And I am not a magical unicorn in this. I'm not.
You are, but
well, thank you.
And
but in this particular aspect, that I think has been such a phenomenal shift that I've seen with my clients and with my friends and the people around me is for them to understand that they can go into a selling situation exactly like they would walk into a grocery store. Same thing. Right? Who you are with your friends can be who you are on the sales call. You don't have to put on a different persona. In fact, if you do put on a different persona, the client's going to smell that, think it's unauthentic, and leave.
Yeah, that's when things get weird, isn't it?
Yes. And I hear this all the time. So one of the things that I did, which was like the weirdest circus ever, I don't recommend it if you don't want to do a lot of empathic not mine, but I'll cry anyway, crying, is I listened to hundreds of sales calls, hundreds. And I went out to my list and I went out to my friends and my own network and my clients. And I said, send me either your best sales call or your worst sales call. Don't tell me which one it is. Just send it to me. And almost everybody sent me their worst sales call. Or some people sent me some stuff that were just kind of boring. But what I would see on every single call of this particular type is that like right now, like you and I, we're buds. We haven't known each other long, but we were fast friends. This is our rapport. This is you and me. If we were having coffee right now, this would be the tone, right? And I see people that have this natural rapport. They're fostering trust, right? They're creating that safe space. They're doing so much awesome bonding on this call. And then it comes time to mention money and they go into like a newscaster voice. Like their face just shifts. It's like Arya Stark and her million faces, like just totally different. And then suddenly you'd be like, well, thank you so much again for your time today, Pepper. I hope that this was worth your time. I would like to talk about payment structures now. And they go, and the client goes, where the heck did she go? Who is this? And we can't do that. We have to stay in the vein where they found us in the first place. It's actually easier to do that as long as you feel like you have permission to stay who you are.
Yeah, that's powerful stuff. And it's so fascinating. And I feel like typically, like the people that I talk to, my friends, fellow introverts and empaths, you know, when we find somebody else's product or course or whatever that we love, we have no problem selling that to our friends. You know, as long as we're not getting anything out of it, it's like a no-brainer. And I'm happy to share and, you know, shout it from the mountaintops. But the second, like, even if I was to get an affiliate income, like, it feels different, and it feels like I'm sure I'm guilty of the robot newscaster thing that you're talking about. Like it feels like a different conversation then.
Yes.
And what I'm hearing you say is that it doesn't have to be a different conversation, that it can still be, just because it's supporting us and them, it doesn't have to be a weird conversation.
Yeah, and you still need to hit your professional marks, right? So I have an interesting relationship with the word professionalism as I sit here in a pig sweater with buttons that have little faces on them and curly tails, and I'm drinking out of my cat mug and I have pigtails in. Like, I have obviously a very interesting idea of what professionalism is. But on a sales call, I know what's truly important is, number one, they get a sense for me, for my values, for what's important to me, and why, and how I determine client success based on what they receive and what they get out of the situation, right? But additionally, on top of all of that other stuff, I know that in order for a sales call to be successful, I have to make sure that they learn, they experience, and they feel certain things on that call based on a combination of facts and emotions, right? That I'm sharing. I'm doing some storytelling, but I'm also outlining a strategy. Right? I'm future pacing with you. I'm showing you what this is like. I'm giving you an itemized list. And I'm also saying, ooh, imagine when this is different for you. Right? I have to do those things.
Right.
I have to show the value prop in a variety of ways. And I have to do that professionally in a way that is competitive. But beyond that, I still never have to leave the energy that I came into the situation with.
Right.
I don't. Right. I could do an entire sales call. I won't, because it would be aggressive and assaultive, but I could sing an entire sales call if I wanted to. As long as I have a musical theater degree, I could do it, right? But I'm not going to. But if that was my shtick, I could, as long as I was listening and not just performing. And as long as I was hitting my marks of what they need to know in order to make the right choice for them, whether or not that right choice is hiring me.
Well, and what keeps coming up in my mind is the idea of integrity. Like, as long as we approach this, it's almost like professionalism and integrity kind of hand in hand for me, where it's, you know, you can do the things you need to do to make the sale with integrity and authenticity, and that's okay. Like, that's the key, right? Is that you can, yeah.
You know, if we're in a big open field with a great big fence, and that field is called integrity, right? And outside the boundary is everything that makes you feel gross and less than, and like you're cheapening your value. Y'all, you don't even have to go near the fence. There is no requirement for you to do anything that actually offends your integrity. Now, don't mishear me on that one, y'all. Don't take that as a freebie and go, oh, okay, I don't have to make myself uncomfortable ever. I'm not talking about uncomfortable ever. This is still a job. You're going to have conversations and situations that feel like a job, and rejection sucks. And when you get rejected, it will suck. And I can't take that away for you, and I wish that I could. Maybe there's another expert out there who can. But the thing is, at least I never have to leave that field of integrity. Because if you get rejected outside your integrity, it doubly hurts. If you get rejected inside your integrity, at least you can sleep well at night, knowing that you didn't cheapen yourself.
Right.
But you never, ever have to leave your integrity. Get uncomfortable? Yes. Force yourself to grow and change? Yes. Put yourself out there? Yes. Face rejection? Yes. Get back up? Yes. Be tenacious? Yes. All of those things, true. But do anything at all that morally violates you or makes you question if you're as good a person as you hope you are? No. Never required. Not even once.
Well, so interesting. I remember when I first started, and this was, 2008, 2009, and I was going to networking events, and I remember one of the lunch and learn things that I went to was this guy gave a presentation about selling, and it was this very manipulative, really against my values kind of thing. But there was still part of my mind was like, God, is that what I have to do? Do I have to figure out how to be comfortable with that in order to be successful? And I was so, because it was all so fresh and new, and I've never done sales before. I'd done corporate work where I wasn't in sales. I was, back end stuff. And so it was like, is this really what has to be done? And so it took me a moment sitting with that where it was like, I can't do that. I can't bring myself to actually go down that road because it's not aligned with my values. But there's this weird feeling well, I guess you just don't want to be successful or you've had that kind of, I've had people say that to me. It's if you don't make this kind of sale, then you just don't want to be successful. You don't want to really be successful. You're just going to be mediocre. And it's this.
And it's it's not about wanting. It's about not knowing how.
Exactly.
Right? It's not about wanting.
If I known you from the beginning, it would be different.
It wouldn't have been different because back in 2008, 2009, I would have been right there with you, sitting next to you, holding your hand in that seminar, being like, I promise you on everything that is important to me, we will never do this. Same year, same conference, we would have gone out to lunch and solemnly promised to each other we would never, ever, ever. Right? I was so avoidant back then, 100%, because of seminars like that. Right? Because of that feeling that you had. But somewhere along the way, the only thing that really changed for me, number one, was financial desperation. I'm like, I'm going to have to go get a job if I don't figure out how to grow my company. Right? I cannot sustain this, number one. So part of it was due of that violation, of that financial violated space. But also I was burning out. I was getting sick. I was exhausted. My clients were worried about me. They'd show up on a call and they'd be like, babe, are you sleeping? How am I going to tell them, no, I'm not sleeping? I gave you a $2,000 retainer for $200. I'm still paying it off. You're sleeping well at night, making money off of me. And I think I have an ulcer that's got your name on it. How do you tell a client that? That's not the client's fault. That's my boundaries, right? That's my confidence. That's my deliverability, right? And so what I had to do was give myself permission to learn every single thing that I could about selling. And if I got to something that actually offended me, instead of just throwing it out with the bathwater, I sat there and I dissected it down to what's the psychology here? What's the service here? And how can I alter that? How can I modify that so that the icky part is not included? And that's what I did, painstakingly pulling sleaze out of everything I was learning until what I realized left over was more than one strategy on how to do this from a phenomenal place of care.
Wow. Yeah. I love your terminology of dissecting the sleaze out of all of the techniques. That's really fascinating, and I love it. And I've seen people sell really easily in a way that they didn't change tone, they didn't change who they were, and I've seen it happen. And I've seen it not happen, and I can see it. I can see the difference. Yep. But I'm not sure I could teach the difference. So I love that that's what you're doing.
I can. I know. No, I mean, I think another part of it though is also one of the things, and I want to talk specifically to introverts like us, right? Because you and I are different kinds of introverts. You're on the quieter side. I'm on the louder, burn myself out quickly side. But we both consider ourselves to be introverts. So I want to talk to people out there who are shy or introverted or really just don't love talking as much as they love listening. To you, I say, congratulations, you're amazing at sales. When highly extroverted people or loud introverts come to me, a huge part of my job, ironically, I understand, is teaching them to shut up. If you're a natural shutter-upper, if you're a natural listener, if you're a natural asker of questions, oh, you got this made. Because you don't need to be reminded to shut up. Because one of the things that happens on these calls and with introverts when they try to do the whole talky approach is we all wind up just babbling. I call it sales vomit, right? Like one of the best things, I got a wonderful testimonial from someone in sales for empaths the other day. Nicest guy. He wrote me a message and I was like, I love that out of context. No one's going to understand that. He wrote back, Annie, I finally stopped vomiting. And I was like, this is the best testimonial in the world if you know this terminology. But otherwise, it sounds like Lowry needs to go see a doctor. Damn. Like, oh, man. But the thing is, in order for me to sell from a place of integrity, I have to be firm in the idea that what I'm doing is not only legit, but what I'm offering you is the right fit for you. The amazing thing is, the best way for me to figure out if what I'm offering is right for you is for me to ask you a question, shut my mouth, listen, and digest your response before I ask you another question to go a little bit deeper, right? This listening-based approach is so easy for introverts because we don't have to feel like the second they get on the call with us, we're like, hold on, and now I will cram this pre-rehearsed script down your throat before you can say boo. That, again, not required. Talk less than the person you're on the phone with. Absolutely. Make it all about them, right? If you're a freaking empath, make it all about how they feel. Go ahead. You can lead with your own to build that, that emotional intimacy. You could say, I know that in the past I felt this way, this way, this way. Do you relate to that? But don't say a bunch of I sentences. Say a bunch of you. Say a bunch of we. Build that trust connection. If you're an introvert, freaking fantastic. Ask great questions to get them to think about their lives and then sit there and listen. Amazing. Fantastic. And now I hear those calls. People going, oh, this is my worst sales call. And I'm like, you're one sentence away from this being an incredible sales call. One sentence away. Because you had the rapport, you had the connection the whole time. You just didn't know how to keep that energy for the ask. It's one little strategy away.
So much to process there. I think there's so much to take away that, people listening can really, and for a second, and as with what happens with you is I forget that other people are actually going to be listening to this. It's like I get so sucked into you that it's like, oh wait, we're on a podcast.
Hello.
Hello. But I think it's just so much to really think about that we can really kind of take back and say, what am I doing and where does that drop off and where does it, where am I shifting myself? And how can I maybe open that up a little bit more? And I even think, as you're talking, I think about sales page language and sales page kind of information that we're putting out there and how to structure that more authentically. And I think that there's just so much there to really work with that we can really start, experimenting with how that feels and feels different and feels better. And kind of lean into that a little bit more. I like that. You're doing such a good job listening right now, Annie. I wish you guys could see here. I should have done this one on video.
It's probably for the best that it's not. But yeah, it's I think one of the things that's so hard and that I really didn't understand it, and I already touched on this a little bit, but I just want to make sure that anybody listening, there's a self-awareness piece of this is how I feel, and this is how I respond when I feel threatened. This is how I feel, and this is how I respond when I feel uncomfortable or challenged. And this is how I feel, and this is how I respond when I feel violated or violating. And I never want anybody to do anything that straight up feels like a violation. Ever. Ever, ever, ever. But in order to sell, you are probably going to have to do some stuff that's uncomfortable. Because guess what? Running a business is really uncomfortable. A lot. Yeah. And I don't have to tell your audience that. A lot of us are doing this already. Like, it's got highs, it's got lows, it's a roller coaster, and there's a constant learning curve. Yeah. Right?
Well, there's so much growth that has to happen as individuals.
Absolutely. Yeah. Right? So are you making yourself uncomfortable toward growth? Or are you making yourself uncomfortable towards sleaze? Because making yourself uncomfortable towards sleaze, please don't. I beg of you. I crawl on hands and knees and say, don't do it. There are enough people out there selling like that, to the point where I have a job to try to yell down that. Okay? Like, don't do that. But I also just want to make sure that people know that you will feel some growing pains. That means you're doing a good job. That means that you're putting yourself out there in a new way. But also, that growing pain is going to lead to rapid growth in your business the moment you choose to include yourself in the win-win that you're offering. The moment you choose to do that and strategically back that up, and the moment you know this is a violation, this is a boundary, this is something that I'm safe within, this is something I need to work on. The moment that you apply that self-awareness of your own ethical and integral boundaries, the moment your business will reflect that with growth.
What a wonderful thing to look forward to and to work towards. Like, it's so exciting.
And it is a wonderful thing to work toward. I went through it myself. Right? I told you at the very beginning, if you went back in time and told me that I teach sales, I would weep all over you. And now I cannot imagine doing anything that I love more except my very, very goofy podcast, which I just get to talk about pop culture all the time. So what else? But it's so fulfilling now. It's so liberating now. And it's also really amazing now that if I want to buy myself a stupid sweater covered in pigs at a thrift store that's for some reason $20, even though it's at a thrift store, I'm going to buy this shoulder padded pig sweater because I have the means to do it. Right? Because I have the means and I don't have to rely on anybody else for this pig sweater. This pig sweater is mine, paid for by me with money I brought in. Right? And so that transformation is beautiful, powerful, and your birthright as a do-gooder. Claim it. Do it. Serve and be compensated. They are not mutually exclusive. It is not cheapened by you getting paid as long as you stay in integrity.
Yeah. So the question I love to ask everybody, and I'm so curious what your answer will be. So you've had some iterations with your business, and looking back to when you first started, that first year, what advice would you have around something that came up during that first year? Like, looking back and thinking how you've changed so much, and what do you wish you had known or done differently in that first year?
I mean, if I could have predicted sales avoidance, if I could have known that was something I would fall into, then obviously I would have changed that. But you know what? More than anything in that first year, I would have kept my eyes on my own paper. I did a lot of modeling back then. I was young. I was new to business. I didn't see it as inauthentic because it didn't feel inauthentic, but it wasn't purely mine because I was going, well, so-and-so's doing it this way, so I should do it this way. Not that strategy is not important. It is. But what happened was I was doing a lot of performative work instead of just being in my work. And I wish that I could have been more self-aware in the first year of my business that I was doing that, instead of, 3 years down the line when I woke up and I looked to the left and I looked to the right and my competitors looked exactly like me. Because that's not what I wanted. And that's not who I am. And that's not even about like me making my business about me. It's just in order for people to feel safe, protected, seen, supported by me, they want to know who I am. I was giving them a facsimile of me because I thought I had to strategically. Incorrect. I wish I could go back and I could just be like pure me from the jump. I don't know how I would have done that, but it would have saved me a lot of time.
That is really interesting and super powerful, because I think like that is what we all do in the beginning. That first year, you're just trying to see what are they doing that works. I'll do the exact same thing. And like you said, strategy is important, but you can have strategy and apply your own personality to it, and show up to your business authentically. It took me a hot minute to figure that out too. Like, I think that's just kind of the standard. Like, we look around and we try to, they're having success, so I'm going to do what they're doing. And it doesn't work like that, because especially in competitive markets, like it's, dime a dozen for, a lot of the online business models, but the difference is the person that's showing up and doing the work. And if you leave that out from the beginning, that you don't really have that differentiation. That was a mouthful. That is so key to success, especially in competitive markets. And so I love that you said that, and I wholeheartedly agree with that, and would say it about myself as well, that you got to be yourself from the beginning. But it's so hard because it's so, like, you don't know what you're doing and you're trying to like figure it out, all the things from the beginning, but it can be done.
It's all about how you want to show up.
Yeah.
Drop the performative need. Drop the I need to be loud and I need to be flashy. If that's not in you and of you, that will come. Right? Like, I'm basically the sales equivalent of a tap dancer. I don't have to put that on. That's just me. But when I put a performative layer on top of that, it's obnoxious. It's obnoxious, it's inauthentic, and it takes the best parts of me and bastardizes them. Right? Because it's performative. Drop the performative junk and show up. How are you going to show up? Are you going to show up with your listening ears on? Are you going to show up with your big bleeding heart on your sleeve? Are you going to show up and include yourself? Are you going to show up with confidence and worthiness? Are you going to show up and ask for compensation? How are you going to show up? Because at the end of the day, it's not about putting anything on. It's about what you're bringing from you.
Love that. Perfect way to wrap that up. And thank you so much, Annie. That was just so many good things to think about and to reflect on for all of our businesses, no matter where we are in our process. But I love it. Thank you, Annie. You are such a bright light in my world, and I'm happy to be able to share a little bit of you with the podcast listeners. So thank you for being here.
Oh, it is my pleasure. I will gladly sit down with you any old time.
Thank you, Annie, for talking with us today. You can find out more information about Annie and the link to her website and the show notes for this episode at smallbusinesssisterhood.com/40. I hope you found this episode useful and inspiring. If you did, please pop over to iTunes and leave a review. Thanks for listening. Catch you next time.